Good morning and happy Sabbath. This is Lydia Tate. LydiaSpeaks.com is a website where you can find me. Today, I will continue our conversation on financial wellness. Today, however, I want to focus on debt, paying off debt. And one of the strategies that I know that is effective is this debt snowball method. So I will be talking more about the debt snowball method, and we'll talk maybe about a couple of other options that you can use to get out of debt. But the debt snowball method is one that seems to be quite effective for people that I know, and I have even used it in the past and it's worked well for me. And so I wanted to share how that works and maybe go through this journey with you of getting out of debt. I know that we've accumulated a lot of debt with the pandemic now, and we're all trying to get better. We're all trying to move forward. Hopefully we can move forward even with our finances. So, focusing on financial wellness this season and just trying to work with you to get to a healthy place. So let's talk about paying off our debt using the snowball method. I know, you may be overwhelmed, or you may be in a situation where you're trying to do some new things for your household, and you're not able to do it because you don't have enough resources. Your money is not enough to take care of what you're looking to take care of. You feel like you're stuck. You're kind of like in a frozen state. So this session is definitely for you who is really overwhelmed with your debt and who's actually looking to to get out of debt. So we'll talk about what it is, how it works, and why. Of course, we've mentioned a few of the whys, but we can talk about that later. You may have your own why or your own reason of trying to get out of debt. So have that in mind as we work towards this. We talk about the debt snowball method here. So let's start with understanding what the debt snowball method is. What is the debt snowball method? The debt snowball method, it's a debt strategy, debt repayment strategy, of course, and it focuses completely on paying off your smallest debts first, working your way up to your biggest debt. So you start with your smallest debt, working your way up to your biggest debt. So why the snowball? What is it really? When we say the snowball, do you know what a snowball is? Think about it this way. Imagine if you live in a country where there's snow. Imagine this. Imagine making a small snowball in your hand, right? Then rolling it down in the snow. And as the snowball rolls and more snow sticks to it, it gets bigger and bigger until it becomes a snowball builder. So think about it that way. Take a small snowball here. If you live in a country or is a city or state where there's winter, and just keep rolling and you see it will pick up more snow until it becomes bigger. So that is what the snowball method, if you're trying to visualize it, that's kind of how it looks. And the bigger it gets, the faster your situation, the better your situation gets. Then how does it relate to debt? With the debt snowball method, you start with paying off the small debt first. You're paying off your smallest debt as quickly and as aggressively as possible. So you pay it off quickly and aggressively. Then you move on to your larger debts, and you aim at eradicating each debt at a time. So you work with the smallest debt, paying it off aggressively and quickly. And when you get done with it, then you move on to the next smaller debt. So that is really to just give you the big picture there. So how are you right now? Are your finances okay? Are you in debt? Are you trying to make a major purchase here in 2021? What are some of your financial goals? Do you have a budget? And is your budget working for you? Or are you making less money than you really can? Are you making less money than what you need to be making so that you can get out of debt? So this debt snowball works very well, and by the time what I want to share with you here, if you can just take note and implement it, just try implementing it even for the next 30 days, just for maybe even 90 days, and see how your financial position changes. And of course, as you're paying off your debt, you also have the option of negotiating with your lenders, and working through that process. But again, I'll be talking about the snowball method here. But there are other ways that you can pay off your debt, and we probably talked about those in the previous video where we talked about managing debt. And we also, we may touch on one or two more here as we talk about this. So with the debt snowball method, by the time you get out of the larger debt, you actually have extra cash and you freed up some money for you to make payments to the smaller debt. So it does create a snowball that grows and grows until your debts are free. And it's about building momentum to keep up with maintaining the discipline you need to get out of debt. So you really want to focus, you would want to be sure that you're creating the momentum and you're staying motivated to get out of the situation that you're in. And think of it this way. Think about chipping away a larger loan, how chipping away a larger loan can feel. Let's say, for instance, that you have a mortgage and you have a credit card debt where you own $5,000, or you owe $5,000. Which one do you think you would be able to pay off faster? Of course, you'd be able to pay off the $5,000 debt faster than you pay your mortgage of $200,000, for instance. So you want to focus on the smaller debt and paying off the smaller debt because it just keeps you motivated. But there are some people who may have a different perspective to that, but that's okay, and we can talk about those other options too. But the debt snowball method just kind of gets you to the result a lot faster of getting out of debt. So it's a really good way to consider. How does it work? How does this strategy work? That's the big question, right? So you're paying off your debt requires a lot of self-discipline. But that's especially true in the case of debt snowball method here. You've got to be really disciplined. The idea here is to gain momentum and tackle debt as quickly and as intensely as possible. And even if it means that you end up paying your money in the long run due to high interest, more money due to high interest, which is a disadvantage of this method, but there are a lot of other advantages to this process. The true advantage is you get out of debt really, really fast. There is a possibility also that you may have debt out there with higher rates that you tackle later. And yes, you can potentially pay higher interest on those other high interest debt that have higher balances, but it makes sense to get out of debt fast and effectively. So this is why the debt snowball method makes sense to a lot of people who are looking to get out of debt. But before you even try the debt snowball strategy, experts suggest that you get current on all your bills and you have at least $1,000 saved for your emergency fund. So have you saved up money for your emergency funds? You have your $1,000 in your savings for emergencies, so that if something happens, you don't interrupt your debt snowball process. So make sure you've got your emergency money in your savings account, and make sure that you at least caught up on all your bills so that it can make sense for you to use this method. And if you excuse me, and if you're not caught up in your bills, that's perfectly okay also, because there are other things that you can do to be able to catch up on your bills, and we can talk about those in depth at another session. This one here, we're just focusing on the debt snowball method. So make sure you have got your $1,000 saved up, and make sure that you also are current on your bills, and then list your debt in order of the smallest amount to the largest amount, regardless of the interest rate. So if you have a pen and paper right now, perhaps you might want to go through this process with me. The first thing you do is list down all your debts, from the smallest to the highest balances. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the smallest balance $1,000, the next balance 2,000, 3,000, whatever your balances are on all your debts, even the debts that are in collection, just if you have those, or debts that, or even public record debt, just list them down, because they're debts that you've got to pay at some point. But I will say that debts that are on collections and with collection agencies, or you have public like bankruptcies and things like that, we can deal with those later. I can share with you how to work through that process. And if you're looking for me to just go through your situation privately, you can reach out to me. Go to my website at lydiaspeaks.com, and you can send me an email at coaching@lydiaspeaks.com as well, and we can find a one-on-one session and go through your debt with you, and give you a plan that can certainly help you to get to that next place. So recently we spoke about credit and having a credit karma account, and part of getting out of debt is also making sure that you've looked at your credit and you see what's reported on your credit, and you're looking at those balances and making sure they're reported accurately, and listing down those debts according to the balances that you have. If you're not sure what your balances are, I hope you're getting a statement every month so you know what you owe at any given time. You really have to look at those statements, because sometimes you may have a payment that it was not posted correctly, and you paying on a debt that you should not be paying on. And you may also have, by this time, when we talked about managing debt in the previous videos, we also talked about calling your financial institutions and negotiating on rates with them. So hopefully by this time you've done all that, and now you're just listing them down so that you can find a way to get out of debt. So if you haven't listened to some of the videos, just go back, find me on YouTube at Lydia Tate, and then you can listen to some of the videos that I've made on managing debt and on credit, and then get to this session of getting out of debt using the debt snowball method. So now we've listed down all our bills from the lowest balance to the highest balance. And now we get to the next step. So we start paying off our smallest debt. The goal is to attack it with all our might, right? And making the highest payments you can afford, and reducing your lifestyle as necessary. You really have to do that. You have to reduce your lifestyle if necessary to pay off some of those debts quickly. So are you still eating out every week or every 2 weeks? That $50 to $100 that you're using going out dining or doing some other activities that you really shouldn't be doing. I'm thinking with the pandemic now, I'm sure that many people are not doing a lot of eating out, so that money you can certainly use it to pay off some of your debt. As we change our lifestyle and we're also eating healthy, we change the way that we do business, the way that we eat. So you're eating healthy, maybe you're spending money on healthier options that cost less, so that you can have a little extra money to spend towards paying your debt. You've got your budget in place and you're sticking with your budget. As you stick with your budget, you have some extra money to use towards paying that smallest debt first, the one with the smaller balance first. So once you get done with that, now you've got your bills listed. You're paying off the one with the smallest balance, and you want to pay it off as quickly as possible. And once the smallest debt is paid off, the debt on your list, the number one debt, then you get to the next one. Then you take the amount that you are paying on that debt and put it towards the next largest debt. So you on your second debt here. Whatever you were using to pay on your first debt with the lowest balance, once you pay that off, do not spend that money. Take that money and use it towards that second debt there. So, by the way, when you're making extra payments in the first debt with the lowest balance, you're also making payments on the other debts. You may be making minimum payments, which is okay, because you'll get to it. You just want to make sure that your bills are current. So you're making minimum payments on the other debts that you've listed, but you're paying extra towards your smallest balance. You're done with paying it off, you get to the next one in your list, and you do the same. You take that money you're using for the previous debt that you paid off, put it towards that second debt, and pay it off. And then once you get done with that, go to the next one, the next largest debt, and use the same strategy. Use the monies you were using for the first debt and the monies you're using for the second debt, and apply it to your third debt. Of course, you're paying your regular payment to your third debt plus the extra payments that you were using for the other two debts. So you want to be sure that you're doing that, because if you don't do that, then you're thrown off. Again, like I mentioned earlier, it takes a lot of discipline. You've got to be extremely disciplined to do this. That means that you've got to have your budget in place, you've got to have your emergency funds in place, and you've got to make sure that every time you pay off a debt, you use that money towards the next debt. And I'll tell you something, When you pay off one debt, it's a great feeling. It's a good feeling. I'd say reward yourself. I always say that you're human. Reward yourself with something. Don't go spending a lot of money. I mean, even if it's just, saying, hey, I'm going to spend $10 on something that makes me feel good. Just reward yourself with that. But make sure you're still sticking with your budget. If it's not in your budget, don't do it. Just keep paying your debt until you get done with it. Just make sure you're focusing on the smallest debts, and you go down from one to another using the extra funds that you were using to pay off the previous debt towards the next debt until you get done. And just repeat this process over and over again until you get done. When that debt is paid off, take that next big monthly payments and use it towards the next one. We've talked about that. Continue doing this until you're debt free. So this is a really, really good strategy. And like I said, it's effective. It has worked for a lot of people. I know a lot of people who've used this strategy, and they set a goal to pay off their debts in 3 years, and they became debt free. And they were, they're looking to purchase a home. They were able to purchase their dream home, or they're looking to invest in a project for their business, and they were able to do that. So it's really, really important that you focus on this. So is this really about debt reduction or behavior modification? I mentioned being disciplined. This here is actually a debt reduction and a behavior modification. So help us all, God, because it is truly a behavior modification. Because now we have to maybe cook more at home. We have to maybe walk more. I mean, we have to do something different so that we can have that extra money. And it could even require that you get another job. And it could be you need to get a second job, or you just need to get another job completely to generate additional income. So it should be clear that the debt snowball method is much of a behavior modification. Yes, I did mention that. It's more of a modification strategy, and it's also a debt reduction strategy. So it's both, yes. The main idea here is to be aggressive. Be aggressive with paying your debt. You're trying to build the snowball of all snowballs. You really, really have to get aggressive. And you're trying to build the kind of snowball that will destroy the strongest snow on the block. That is why you're really, really strategizing and staying disciplined and paying one debt at a time, because this would mean that you're picking up, like I said, they mean that you find something to generate additional income so that you can get out of this job. Especially during this holiday season, a lot of retail stores have openings for second jobs. They're just options that you could use to earn additional income, or you could be thinking about starting a business or whatever you're doing to generate additional income to support yourself. Just consider all those options. They do make sense, and they do help you pay off your debts as well. But like I said, this debt snowball may not be for everyone. You may not necessarily have the motivation or the discipline. You may not necessarily agree with paying off the smallest balance of your debts first. People are different. It just depends on what works for you. But I can assure you that this debt snowball method works. So you just have to be motivated to be able to do that. Some people want to look at paying off the balances with the lowest interest, with the highest interest rate first. That could be tricky, but some people prefer it that way. And some with the highest interest rates may also have higher balances, and maybe you may not achieve your goal just as fast. And so paying the smaller balances, to me, it just makes sense, because then you can celebrate fast, so you can measure your success a lot faster and sooner, and it keeps you motivated. So there are some advantages and disadvantages of the debt snowball method, and I always like to talk about this because we are very informed consumers, and you want to be sure that this is for you before you consider doing it. Okay, so the primary advantage of the debt snowball method is really the positive psychological effect it brings. For many people, achieving small triumphs feel good. Some, like me, it feels good when I achieve small successes. For some, maybe not. The idea is that good feeling will push you to keep working hard to tackle debts, right? So that's an advantage. And then one of the disadvantages then, like I mentioned earlier, is it can be expensive because you're paying off the smaller balances first, which may not necessarily have the highest interest, and you may be paying more interest in future for whatever debts you've got out there. So you know your situation better. You know what your interest rates are. You know what your balances are, and that's why you have to list them down. And if you're not sure, perhaps consider working with a consultant, and that would help you also look at your plan and see if it makes sense. So you want to be sure that you understand what you're getting into. And if this process with the debt snowball doesn't work for you, there are other alternatives out there. One of them is a debt snowflaking. The other one is a debt avalanche, and then another one is a custom-made made model that works, that a lot of consultants use. They have a custom-made model for you that help you get out of debt. So if you're strapped for cash, which unfortunately, many of the Americans right now are in that situation where we strapped for cash, right? If you're strapped for cash, debt snowflaking involves just putting any extra small amounts of cash towards your debt repayment. So maybe you're in a situation where you just don't have extra money anywhere. But you can find money somewhere. Let's say maybe you even found like $20 in your purse that you didn't expect to have in there, and you didn't have it in your budget to do anything with it. Then take that money and use it towards paying down a debt. So this one here, it will take you longer to get out of debt. If you're not in a position to start using the debt snowball method, then maybe this is a way to start small. But if you really, really want to get out of debt, then it's best to just get aggressive. If you haven't saved your $1,000 emergency money by now, you really want to try and find a way to do that. Pay yourself as you pay your tithe, as you pay your bills. Make sure that you have 10% that's going towards your savings account, and get aggressive with saving money, putting money into your personal savings account, in addition to your 401k and your retirement account and all those others, which we'll talk about later. But you really want to make sure you have emergency money, just in case your car breaks down or something happens and you need some money to take care of some business. But you make sure that before you get into debt snowballing, that you've got a savings account set. But if you can't, you can start with the debt snowflaking, where you put any extra money you have towards your debt and pay it off. Think about if you get a tax refund check, that's money that you typically didn't have. Take some, put in your savings account, and then take a good chunk of it and pay off a debt. You could do that. It's a one-time money that comes once a year for those who get refunds, and use that money towards paying your debt. Okay, and then let's say if you get bonuses at work, you can use your bonuses at work to pay off debt as well. So just consider those options of debt snowflaking. It's not often talked about. The debt snowballing is one that is really, really good, that works for a lot of people. So people tend to lean more towards that. Then there is the debt avalanche. The debt avalanche is it's a good method too. If you want to save on interest, the debt avalanche method focuses on paying off your highest interest rate first, regardless of the loan size. So let's say you have a credit card with 5%. We only dream to have those. So you have a loan out there with 5%, and you have another one 21%. So you will pay off the 21% debt first before you pay off the 5% debt first. That is what they call the debt avalanche. So you have the choice to use that option or use the debt snowball method. But I'm focusing on the debt snowball method because I know it's effective, and it works faster and efficiently and effectively if we modify our behavior. We discipline ourselves to do the things that I've just discussed with you here. Then we can actually get out of debt together. So, with this, you modify your behavior. When you pay off a debt, it gives you a good feeling, a positive psychological effect of small victories. And research actually does show that the debt snowball method is very effective. So consider using that to pay off your debt. Again, you make a list of all your debts. You have $1,000 saved in your emergency account. You list down your debts according to the one with the lowest balance and the highest balance. You use every extra money you have, meaning if you don't have extra money, find a second source of income. If you have to, use that money to pay off that smallest balance that you have. Once you pay that off, take those funds and use towards the next debt and the next. You will be uncomfortable during this process. Let's say you've listed down your debt and you do see that you've got to pay everything off in 2 or 3 years. Yes, you may not get much sleep in the 2 or 3 years because you're looking to get out of debt, and you've modified your lifestyle, you've changed the way you do things, and you're focusing on getting out of debt, and you do it and you get out of debt. You can get back on track. If your credit is already in shambles, or if your finances are in shambles, you just have to stop for a minute and take action. Do some of the things that we're talking about. Do some of the things that I've shared with you here, and see how your situation changes. Again, you can reach me through my website, lydiaspeaks.com. You can send me an email at coaching@lydiaspeaks.com, and we can discuss when we can go through your plan and give you some direction on how to get out of debt. I thank you this day, and I pray that you have a blessed Saturday and you have a blessed Sabbath for my Sabbath keepers. See you later. Thank you. Bye.